Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. I'm Jonathan Freedman, and our next guest up, great to see you again, Richard Connolly of iCornerstone Inc. Welcome to Radio Entrepreneurs.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. It's a pleasure to be back. It's almost 3 years, but I'm thrilled to be here.
So great to have you on the show again. I imagine you've been a very busy man, given the economy and given what's going on. Why don't you tell our listeners what it is that your company does?
Well, my company has a solution to the problems homeowners have when obtaining goods and services from the residential building and remodeling industry. I provide a comprehensive solution that actually benefits everybody, not just the consumer, which is something that really makes me different from anybody else in the business.
So tell us a little bit about how the service works, because I know what you're doing is you're essentially helping, as you said, both parties or all parties involved. But tell us a little bit about the mechanics of how your platform works and why it benefits both consumers and the trade.
Sure. For the first time, to the best of my knowledge ever, everybody, all parties, including regulators, are unified in one place, which is my platform. And by doing so, everybody can see the profiles of everybody else so that everybody knows what everybody else knows about everyone in the platform or in the network. That provides a level of transparency and accountability that simply doesn't exist anywhere else, to the best of my knowledge. So the platform is a key thing. The second thing about the platform that is key, besides the e-folios for regulators, homeowners, subcontractors, and professionals, there is an educational component, and that is a research tool. It's based on my book, which is called How to Avoid Building or Remodeling Hell. I published that book many, many, many years ago. I updated it.
I think there's probably many, many occupants that are living there.
There probably are. And Jonathan, I updated it, of course, for the platform, and there was very little to change. Nothing has changed. And this is a problem that goes right back all the way to the ancient Greeks when Pericles is building the city on the hill. So it's something that has been going on. It's an ancient problem, but I think I have a modern solution.
So tell us a little bit about is there something unique within this industry, or is it just that the average homeowner has very little knowledge? And so historically it was a industry wherein, tradespeople had the upper hand, so to speak. It seems like we've got a significant supply and demand issue in today's marketplace. We've got lots and lots of people who seem to have unlimited amounts of renovations to do in their homes and limited supply in terms of contractors who are even responding to homeowners, a level of frustration.
Yeah, well, that's what you're pointing out, of course, is the economics of the industry, which is up and down and tends to be cyclical, although this cycle seems to be much longer than any other cycle, and this is an upcycle. It may have to do with the fact that people are home more often now because of COVID and want to do things in their houses that they might not have thought of doing before. Home offices, basements, separation of rooms instead of having the open concept, which everyone's favoring so much. So that's part of it. One of the mitigating factors should have been the incredible rise in the price of lumber. And I don't mean a small amount of money. I'm talking 3 to 4 times the amount of for lumber products in all wood products in a period of less than a year. That has come down somewhat, but it hasn't returned to pre-pandemic levels. And you would think that those increases, which add no value whatsoever to the cost of the project, it's simply a price.
You still have a room at the end of it.
You still, right, they add no value whatsoever to the project. You would think that there would be fewer people doing work because of that, but that has not been the case. People are just simply going ahead and doing their projects regardless. And I just shake my head in wonderment and I say, how can that be? But they do.
Yeah, it really is amazing when you stop to think about it. And I think walk down any residential street and you see tradespeople at many of the homes. And this has been, as you said, a phenomenon that's gone on for so long. I think we have a secondary aspect, which is we've seen obviously a big housing boom, not only in this area, but I think across the country, in this area in particular. And you pick almost any town, there's renovations going on every block.
There is
tear downs.
I live in Weymouth, which is a modest community, and I'm certainly not understating what I think of my community, but I've seen tear downs in Weymouth. I grew up in South Boston, and that has changed quite a bit, and I've seen tear downs there too, which is, to me, the equivalent of the fall of the Soviet Union. I mean, I never thought I'd see such a thing happen in my lifetime, and yet here it is.
So I guess one of the dynamics at play in the marketplace, and it seems to me as a consumer, as a homeowner who's been out searching for services, again, back to the supply and demand question, it seems to me that many of the trades have looked to go what I would call upmarket. Why come in and fix a toilet or a washing machine when I can build a new home? And so do we have a bifurcation in the marketplace where we've got a lot of guys who are guys, gals, companies who are looking to, strictly deal with large projects versus what many homeowners demand, which is somebody for a day, somebody for a half day, solve my problem?
It's difficult for me to say because, as you pointed out, new housing is really driving the market, and new housing tends to be in clusters where you have neighborhoods and so forth. There are builders who will buy a single lot and they'll build on it. There are builders who will tear down properties and build on it. How much of the market that particular service represents, I have no clue. What I do know is that there's a lot of remodeling going on. And I am fortunate that every project I ever did in the history of my company, beginning in 1988, I have in almost subatomic detail all of the costs of every project I have been involved with. So I know to the penny what they cost. So a project in 1995, I know exactly how much it cost. And when I adjusted for inflation, and this is really an amazing thing, the cost of a project, let's say $50,000 in 1995, that same project, if you adjust it only for inflation and nothing else, would be roughly 75% more. And yet, when you look at the rise in home values during that period, during that 25-year period, that's about 125%. So it seems to me that you're much better off, instead of building a new house or buying a new house, you're much better off making the house that you have work for you, because over time, it's a good investment.
So yeah, that's what I was going to say. Return on investment seems to be there. So what, give us a little bit without digging too deeply into your platform, the value to the consumer, value to contractors, and how, and then I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about your experience as an entrepreneur, because that's what we're all about, radio entrepreneurs. It's, as you said, 1988, you're in it for a long time. It's been a fabulous, you've brought a lot of value to the marketplace. What have you learned from those lessons? What lessons do you take away from the process? So
well, I learned in the Coast Guard that smooth seas make for poor sailors. So what I have discovered is that I've worked for a lot of very difficult people over the years, and I've discovered that it's not about building and remodeling at all. It's about relationships. And oftentimes, contractors and homeowners enter into relationships about which they know very little of the other party. And therein lies the problem. They don't know how, and no business operates the same way insofar as payments are concerned, and what they provide and don't do. And that is a major problem because that's a communication problem. So what the platform is attempting to do is to eliminate any misunderstanding you, the consumer, will have about hiring a contractor, because you will know everything about that person's policies and procedures as it relates to their running of their business. You'll also have all their references there, and you'll have their insurance certificates there. And these are things that you can, on your own, investigate so that you feel comfortable with the decision you're making before you actually contact the contractor and say, I'd like you to be part of my project network. So I'm able to network everybody involved in the project into one place. And the consumer is the one that is driving communications. And the consumer is the one that is saying who will see what. The consumer says who I want in my network and who I don't. I can view anything that I want, but I don't necessarily have to have a person be in my network, even though I've viewed their profile. So that alone is singular. The research part of the platform is singular. And then the other thing that I do that I think is so unusual is I have actually found a way to standardize the language of all of the various trades, including carpentry, painting, and everything. And by standardizing it and attaching to each piece of work a metric, such as lineal feet, square feet, cubic yards, and so forth, I can then attach a rate. If I attach a rate, I can have one rate for everybody. And so what I am now able to do, because I have a past history with all of these contractors that I work with, I know their rates going back several years. And if they want to adjust them, they can. But if the homeowner wants to bid the work out, which I actually require them to do, to people that I don't know, to prove to them that I don't steer business to anybody, the system is wide open. They can then have an equal comparison because everything is predicated on a metric. What's beautiful about that is that when you make these specifications, these labor and material specifications specific to a room or an area, I can then include or exclude anything that I want and automatically adjust the cost of the project without any additional work. So the consumer controls the budget, which is not what happens typically when a general contractor is involved.
So really fascinating. I can see what you where you say we're really bringing transparency and also standardizing language. And I think for many consumers, many homeowners, it's probably one of the biggest challenges is, you know, that it's gibberish in many cases.
It's gibberish, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because they use jargon and all that. And I'm an accomplished writer. I don't feel immodest saying so. And I used to teach English, and I used to teach journalism, and I used to teach writing in college. And communications is extremely important to me. And my goal is to make sure that what I say is understandable to the consumer and, of course, the contractor.
Wonderful. So again, that's a win-win. So have you found in this marketplace where contractors are so busy, and we talked a little bit before we came on air about response rates, are you finding that contractors, or because you've had them on your platform for so long, are willing to engage, or is there less interest because they're so busy?
Well, I'm fortunate that I have a relationship, and that's what it's all about. I have a relationship with a lot of contractors who love the way that I work, because when the consumer hires me for the project, I say to the contractors, I'm working for you now. And I'm this liaison that's right in the middle. So I do all the bookkeeping for them. The specifications that I develop that are so precise serve as invoices. I make sure that they're paid. I don't approve of payments, but I certainly review them with the contractor. So he never has more into the project than he has payment, and the homeowner never has more into the project than payment and work also. So it's an equal relationship, and it's fully balanced. My experience, however, with contractors is this unwillingness, or this, shall I say, indifference to consumers is historic. And in 2011, I published an article in the Boston Globe about getting 3 bids. This is about as bad as it is. That time of the, in 2011, the Great Recession was well underway. And I turned it into a research project. I contacted 150 subcontractors, and of that number, I got only a 10% response rate. And it's shameful. It's really, really shameful. I mean, you're desperate for work. I have great projects. I've done all the work for you. All you have to do is say yes or no, and they won't even respond. So I did the same thing subsequently on Angie's List, and I had the same exact response rate of 10%. So it makes you wonder what it is about this industry that they can be so indifferent to the very people upon whom they rely for their income. It's something I will never understand. It's something I'm trying to do something about.
I wonder how much of it is just it's not in their training, not in their development, not in their background to really focus on the customer, even though they want to focus on, and because I think a lot of tradespeople look at themselves to some degree as artists, right? I'm creating something, I'm building something, and perhaps, you know, they're business people too, and you have to recognize that. And I think maybe that's something that not consciously people don't think about, but you know, so busy running to job to job to job, estimate to estimate. I don't have time to get back to additional people, but recognizing that you have to have all that cycle fulfilled to have a successful subcontracting business.
Yeah, you're not wrong in anything you said. There's an interesting point there that one way that they don't have a lot of time. About 30% of the time contractors have is dedicated to getting new work. Picking up the phone is pretty easy as far as I'm concerned. That's the easiest thing to do, but they're chasing around it. And maybe referrals, which are the gold standard, great. I have no quibble with that. The problem is they cannot do what I do as far as specifications are concerned. They're not detailed. So they have bidding or estimating programs. And the idea behind those programs is to cast the largest net for the least number of fish. And that's how it works. It saves them time. So they don't want to be accurate. They say, well, if I get the job, I get the job. It doesn't matter. I can cast a very large net and I'll have work. And I think that it does a disservice to the contractor and to the consumer working in this manner. I think one agency ought to be responsible for the accuracy of the work and to describe it in such a manner that everybody can use it and benefit from it.
Well,
So
it sounds like you're that guy, and you've done
I
wonderful work in
hope
terms
so.
of building it, and wish you continued success with it.
Thank you so much.
Either homeowners, consumers, and/or subcontractors want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, they can call me at 781-534-0277, and they can be guaranteed that I will answer that phone myself. And I've answered the phone on vacation in Europe and in Anguilla and places like that. I answer my phone, and I respect the contractors and I respect the public.
Wonderful. It's been a pleasure having you back on Radio
Thank you
Entrepreneurs,
so
Richard
much.
Connolly.
Yep.
Our guest has been Richard Connolly, founder of iCornerstone, and we'll be right back with another segment on Radio Entrepreneurs.